Welcome back to another episode of Dudes of the Dead. This is our 7th season, and we are looking at horror movies of the 80s. But before we begin, we're going to be doing our quick cuts, and you may begin.
Okay. We'd be glad to know I found a new way to cheat with quick cuts.
Perfect.
I feel like actually you've cheated this season more than I have. But so back when so my quick cut is Longlegs. This is Longlegs rewatch. Because I remember when we went back last season and we reviewed Longlegs, and when we had to give our recommendations, I felt like I had to see it twice. Like I just didn't quite make up my mind.
Okay.
And I said, of all the films in 2024 that I want to go back and rewatch to like reevaluate was Longlegs. Okay. So here we are.
There we go.
And
that's not really a cheat. It's actually a movie.
It is a movie. It's
even
just
though
a movie we've reviewed.
Yeah,
but
fair.
I was a bit unsure how I felt about it, and I wanted to find a way to work Nicolas Cage into this episode. So
okay, perfect.
Success. So Longlegs is a 2024 American horror thriller directed by Osgood Perkins. The film stars Mika Monroe as FBI agent Lee Harker and Nicolas Cage as the elusive serial killer known as Longlegs. So this had an 86% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's interesting because I assume these evolve over time. So whatever it was in July might be different.
Sure.
As more people review or whatever.
Yeah.
So 86% critic score, 61% audience score, and a 6.6. And at the time, I feel like I just didn't know quite what to prepare for. We've been burned by trailers so many times that I didn't watch a trailer, and I just kind of went into it. And it was just very different than I was expecting.
Right.
It's a more slower burn, procedural.
Yeah.
Borders thriller more. Like it's very similar to like Silence of the Lambs or Seven.
Yeah.
And I was expecting more of like a traditional horror film. So I'm glad to say on rewatch, going in with a frame of mind and kind of knowing what I was in for, I liked it a lot more than I did the first time.
My second watch, yeah.
And I would definitively say at this point that I would recommend it, and I liked it quite a bit. So just knowing what to expect and knowing that it was a procedural and that it was a different style of film, and also knowing a little bit more what to make of Nicolas Cage in this one, I enjoyed it quite a bit more the second time. So I think there's something to be said for rewatching films.
Yeah.
And I knew at the time that it was one that I hadn't made my mind up. Not all films. So Slumber Party Massacre, for example, you might not need to watch that, 6 times. But for some of these more modern, deeper horror films, I think it's sometimes worth 2 or 3 watches before you make up your mind.
Absolutely. And I had almost exactly the same reaction the second time because I knew what to expect. It allowed me to kind of focus on things maybe that I'd missed before. And it just came off as a much better film the second time I watch it. So yeah, I think there are some times when you see a movie the first time and you go, yeah, that was banger. That was so good. And it's not as good on subsequent rewatches. Yes. And then there's some times where you're like, yeah, I liked it, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. And then you go back and you go, wow, this is really good. So I totally get it.
So if you watched Longlegs in 2024 and it didn't quite sit right with you or you weren't sure, it might be worth a rewatch because you may end up loving it. So
agreed.
That's my quick cut.
All right. Well, my quick cut is a 2025 film, Hard Eyes. It's
you saw this one.
I did see it.
Sweet.
It's,
okay, I want to see this.
A horror slasher black comedy. IMDb 6.1 and Rotten Tomatoes is 81 and 77. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's very good. Directed by Josh Rubin. Basically, it focuses on 2 people, Mason Gooding and Olivia Holt. Is she related to Nicholas Holt, or do you know?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I meant to look it up and I forgot. Anyway, for the past several years, the Heart Eyes Killer has wreaked havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. This Valentine's Day, no couple is safe. This movie was a lot of fun.
I've heard good things.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's some pretty gruesome kills and like some gruesome set pieces, but there's also some really funny dark comedy.
Does it go full comedy, or is the comedy more subtle?
Yeah, I would say it's more subtle. It's not like over the top comedic, but there's like one-liners and little nods to things. I thought it was pretty funny.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what to make of it. Again, just
is it kind of like bodies kind of tone?
Yeah, that's close. Okay. I think. I mean, a completely different premise, and rather than having an ensemble, it really focuses on 2 people.
Okay.
But but same kind of feel. Yeah. That's
like
a good
dark mostly, but has some comedy.
Yeah. That's a good, a good comparison. Okay, so we're ready to go into our.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I want to see Hard Eyes. Like I keep seeing it, and I'm like, oh, I need to watch that. So
yeah, and I mean, I
it's
think
next on my list.
It may be worth. It may be worth doing a deeper dive and actually looking at that one in particular. If we do a 2025 season, I think that might be one.
Does it strike you that's something that's headed for a franchise?
I didn't get that sense.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember whether they left any openings at the end or not. I don't know. I can't remember for sure, but I would hope not.
And is it like Terrifier level of like? Is it trying to follow in that vein of gore? No. Okay, so it's
no. I mean,
than that.
there are some gruesome kills.
Yeah,
but it's interesting because I don't think there's anything as gruesome as Terrifier in terms of this film. But it's got a completely different tone. So even when there's lots of violence, it doesn't come off the same way as Terrifier.
Okay.
I definitely think you need to see it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for that
sooner
one.
than later.
Good quick cut.
Okay, so our feature presentation. I saw this film quite a while ago, a long time ago, and
So you knew you were subjecting me.
I feel vindicated that after being subjected to so many Nicolas Cage films, I had Mike watch this one. So we are looking at 1981's Possession.
I've completed my job.
That's why we want to rehire you.
It's out of the question.
And what would be the reason for your refusal?
Family.
Maybe all couples go through this.
You have someone.
Yes,
Do you sleep with him?
yes.
It's a little over 2 hours. IMDb 7.3 and 85 and 77, which is, respectable. Directed by Andrei Zulawski, and Isabella Johnny plays Helen and Anna, and Sam Neill plays Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
That's right. Yeah. A woman starts exhibiting increasingly disturbing behavior after asking her husband for a divorce. Suspicions of infidelity soon give way to something much more sinister. So this was banned in the UK as a video nasty. It was panned by many critics. And one critic said it subverts expectations, which I would agree.
I would agree as well.
It subverts expectations.
So I'm wearing my Exorcist shirt.
Okay.
Because I was expecting when I watched this film,
There would be
film about demonic possession.
Yeah.
And I was rudely mistaken.
Yes. So this might help put a frame or a context around our discussion, because the notes that I have to myself are that it's Kafka-esque or Lynchian.
Yes.
So if you've read any Kafka or you've watched any David Lynch films, sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between reality and fantasy. And this movie, I think, walks that line. Sometimes you're not sure, like, is that really happening, or is it only happening in a character's head or something?
Yeah, I had to watch this one twice.
I believe it. Yeah.
And the first time I was kind of half paying attention, I realized, oh, this is not a movie that, like, you have to give this your full
100%,
attention.
yeah.
I had to give it my full attention twice. Before we jump in, do you feel like this is something we can talk about spoiler free, or the nature of the plot? Like, it's hard to spoil. I don't know if we just have to talk about the film, or if you feel like we should try and do a spoiler-free section first.
I don't know if we can do a spoiler-free section. Well, yeah, I think we can.
Okay.
I think if you just don't,
we just won't mention the second half of the film.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that'll do it. So the film opens with Sam Neill returning from. We don't know a business trip or whatever. We're not sure what it is until later. But he returns and he's kind of standing with his bags on the sidewalk, and it's like an apartment block. And Isabella Gianni, his wife Anna, comes to meet him, and she's saying, obviously there's been some rift in the relationship even before this moment. And she says to him, like, I need more time. And if you've lived, you get the sense that, okay, this is on the rocks, and she wants more time. And he says, okay, well, like, what do you want then? Do you want me to go stay somewhere else? Or so anyway, he ends up coming into the home, into their apartment. They've got a young son. And what struck me the first time I watched it, other than many things, but what struck me about the setting is it's deliberately set in West Berlin.
Yes.
But it's on the cusp. It's on the border of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
So you can, and there's many scenes in the film where you can see the border guards looking in the window of the apartment. So the movie operates on that level as a political metaphor in some ways.
And he was a Polish director who got kicked out of Poland for critiquing communism.
Exactly.
And okay.
And Isabella Gianni also was blacklisted in France. And we'll talk more about her performance. But so that's how the film opens. And then once you get inside the apartment, you begin to see how tense their relationship is. And I'm using that word specifically because both Sam Neill and Isabella Gianni are so good in my view at expressing and demonstrating that tension in the relationship, and those kind of like off-kilter moments where you're really angry or you're really frustrated or whatever. I think they did such a good job. I mean, she's on the level of Toni Collette in this film. 100%. And I know she won Best Actress at Cannes. Yeah. But
and I think Sam Neill said this was like the most extreme role that he's ever had to do. Yeah. I don't know if I liked the movie all in, but they both gave it their absolute. I don't think you could ask more from a performer than you did from these two. Yeah. Like any critique I have of this film has nothing to do with their performances. Both of their performances were incredible. Yeah. And clearly this director was asking a lot from them, particularly like the style of acting he wants them to do. And it sounds like the intensity of making this film was over the top, to the point where she was like suicidal afterwards, or.
Yeah. So the story that I read was she refused to watch the dailies as they came in. But so because she had no clue about, I shouldn't say no clue, but she hadn't seen the little incremental progress that the movie was making. She saw the movie in its completed form.
Right.
And then she was very distraught at the movie, and that's what I heard too. Tried to commit suicide as a result.
Like the raw emotion in the scenes. Like if you've been in a relationship and you've had just one of those brutal like confrontations with your partner, like they capture that very well. Yeah. And I think one thing the director does really well is the use of cinematography to mirror the mental state of the character. So like if Sam Neill is calm and he's in a restaurant or something and things are fine, it's just your kind of standard cinematography. But when he's reeling from an emotional blow or he's in a fight, then the camera is like spinning around and it's all over the place. And it very much mirrors how they're feeling internally. And that's really effective. And I think there's a lot of technique and obviously metaphor happening in this movie.
Yeah. And I think he was going through a divorce at this point as well. So this is obviously autobiographical to some degree.
And you can almost tell like it's got that bitterness and energy in it, I think.
And even with, where did I read somewhere that this is like Kramer versus Kramer, but not on steroids, but something like that. Because if you've seen Kramer versus Kramer, Dustin Hoffman and I can see her face and I can't think of her name. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it'll come to me. But the idea was this couple getting a divorce, and their kid is kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And it's a similar thing here where the child is kind of in the middle
Totally.
of everything. So there'll be some other things that we want to talk about. I mean, I really liked, there's a line that really struck me. Mark says to Helen, we'll get into Helen, but he says to Helen, women are dangerous. And she says, the only thing women have in common is menstruation, which I thought was a really interesting line, given the fact that, yeah, he's having this argument with his wife and he kind of sees all women, he's plastering them with the same kind of idea. And she's like, no, we're not all the same. We only have a couple of things, like biological things in common, but
which they draw your attention to. In
yes,
a couple
they do.
scenes. Yeah, it's not subtle, and it's interesting because like I saw possession and immediately assumed that this was going to be about demonic possession.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they were doing that intentionally or not, but
I'm going to say yes. Yeah. I think he's playing on your expectations.
But you realize it's more about possession, wanting to possess something, like him possessing her or the boyfriend guy wanting to possess her and her not wanting to be possessed.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very clever, right? Because it is subverting your expectation. You go in, okay, well, A, it's a horror film. B, it's called Possession. So you think, okay, I know what this film's about. And then when you go in, it's like, wait a second, I don't think I know what this film was about. So
yeah, I'd heard about this film and I'd seen the cover and I heard Sam Neill was really good.
Yeah.
And I was expecting kind of a classic horror movie. And I just was really caught off guard by what this film ended up being. And I wasn't expecting like a Lynchian mind screw, which it definitely is. I mean, it's good, but it's definitely not. This is going to have a very narrow audience of people I think it appeals to.
Absolutely.
Though the artistry behind it is undeniable.
Yeah. And I mean, I had it in my notes about, what is the title referring to? Is it wanting to possess someone, or is it being possessed by someone, or there's other things we'll talk about in the spoiler section, which might offer some other options of possession. Cause I do think there's a legitimate possession element to this.
And did you come across so there's Zalowski, who's the director.
Yes.
But that style of acting, I guess, was developed by a guy named Gurtovsky. And the director saw either a play or a film when he was younger, which is done in the style of Gurtovsky. And the whole thing there is that exaggerated movement. Oh. So where both the way you move and the way you act, everything is heightened and over exaggerated to like communicate. Yeah. So there's that scene when he's in the rrocking chair and most people would and he's like swinging back and forth. And I guess the actors really struggled with having to do that because it's a very like the way they move their arms and the way they walk across rooms and everything they do is almost over. I'm trying to think what that's like. Almost like professional wrestling or something where you're over committing to things for dramatic effect. Yeah. And you don't see many films like that, but this felt different. I think partly.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a reason or there's a few reasons why this one feels the way it does. And I think partly it's the acting, it's how it's filmed, it's the cinematography, it's the location. There's just a lot of things that make it out of the ordinary in terms of a viewing experience. And it is, this is a film I think that's hard to enjoy just as a watch. Yeah. I think
it's work, this one.
This is work. Yeah. I mean, it asks a lot of you as a viewer. Now, I feel like it gives you something back in terms of, rewards your viewing and your patience. But it's not something that you're going to watch for enjoyment, or it's kind of a completionist thing, or it's like, okay, I want to understand this director or this style of filmmaking.
I think it's a little more coherent than David Lynch.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
But it's done in that style where you're like, what's going on here? Yeah. And what can I trust? And
exactly.
I think the idea of like a reliable narrator comes in a couple times. You're like, do you like the film?
I do.
Okay.
I do after seeing it more than once.
So what was do you remember your initial reaction to this when you saw it?
Yeah, my initial reaction is, what the hell is this?
Yeah, okay.
and I really struggled to connect the dots. Like I got right away the relationship problem. There are things that the first time through, I had no idea. Like, I don't know. I can't really talk about it without giving things away. But
Yeah, we can jump into spoilers pretty quick.
yeah.
So, yeah, and what's your tolerance level for art house films like this?
Yeah, not high.
Yeah.
It depends, because I have seen, I've seen my fair share of those kinds of movies, and I think it just depends on how it's done and how well it comes off, and how obscure it is. Like, this one was obscured on certain levels on your initial viewing. The second time, it's like what's going on.
Yes.
And so it's a little bit less obscure. The
second watch helped a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a limited tolerance for art house films.
Yeah. David Lynch, I think, is good training. Like, I remember the first time I watched a David Lynch film, I was just like, what is this? This is so crazy. And then you go down that rabbit hole and you watch some of his stuff. So then after watching this for half an hour, I'm like, okay, I need to like put my Lynch hat on.
Yes.
When you're watching one of his films. So if you like that, I think there's a lot here to chew on, but it's not really enjoyable.
No, enjoyable is not the word. It's work, and it's uncomfortable, and it's asking a lot of you as a viewer. But I do think it pays off if you're willing to engage with it the way it needs to be engaged with. I mean, I think that's why I used Lynch, but also Kafka, because you read Kafka, the Metamorphosis or something, and you're like, why is this guy now a bug? Like, where did this come from? And is he imagining? Are we in his head? Like, what's going on? And I feel that's the same way here. There are elements that sit firmly in reality, and you think, okay, I can get this. Like, they're having a hard time. And it seems from the very beginning that she's having an affair. And we find out later that, yeah, that's true to some extent. So you on those levels, you totally get what's going on. And then there's other things that happen, and you're like, what did I do? What is that? Like, what did I just watch?
Yeah. So this is a hard film to tackle because there's so many themes going on, but essentially it's a film about divorce.
Essentially, sure.
With other
Absolutely,
elements. But
yeah.
essentially you're watching two characters, you're watching their relationship deteriorate in real time.
Yes.
It implodes, and then some of the implications of that. But that's kind of what you're signing up for.
Absolutely.
So it's very emotional. It's pretty dark, and then it gets pretty weird.
And even things like he does some really extreme close-ups,
Yes.
like more than I've seen in almost any film.
Yeah.
And again, that's to emphasize the tension, because you get like right in their face, and
which is like having a really intense confrontation.
Exactly.
With a partner. Yeah.
So I mean, on those levels, like I've said, if you're willing to engage and you're willing to think and do the work, it does have payoffs for you, but it isn't a fun watch at all.
And I can see, like, fortunately in my relationship, we're neither of us the type of personality to really like go at it and ramp up that emotional side. We're more reclusive, and we tend to get more like hurt or sensitive, but we've had a few of those. But I know there are relationships, people I know who have, this is like not uncommon to have that level of intensity. Like just screaming matches and over the top stuff. Yeah. So this could almost be a little triggering for people, maybe, because it's done so authentically.
Yeah. And again, I mean, if you think he's using this really as an opportunity to work through his own stuff and his own divorce, you can see his own anger and resentment and stuff in the film and in the characters.
So here's a question for you. So we've already alluded to this idea that it takes place on the Berlin Wall, East-West Germany. So do you get the sense that he is using the Berlin Wall as a metaphor for separation of a couple? Or is he using the relationship of the couple to be a metaphor for the separation of, like, do you think he's acting on is he commenting on a personal level, or is he commenting on like a geopolitical?
I think it's the East-West is a metaphor for divorce, because I think that's the central tenet of the film. I mean, he's making other political commentary, so I think it does operate on that level. But if you ask me that question, that's how I would answer. I would say that the main thrust of the film is the divorce.
Yeah.
And other elements of the film work to support that.
Yep, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I could see it going the other way as well.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could
Especially because of his like critiques of communism and
Yes.
like he seems to be he has strong political opinions.
Yeah.
And I think he's trying to use film as a way to
absolutely.
communicate those to people.
And I think you could I feel like it's working on a level of everything is metaphorical of divorce, but I think you could make a pretty compelling argument that it's not, that it's a political film, that the couple is reflecting the geopolitical.
Yes,
yeah, I think
yeah.
you could make that argument pretty successfully.
Yeah, and maybe he's trying to do a bit of both.
So I think we should go into spoilers.
I agree.
So
So do you recommend this film to people?
I'm going to say no, with a caveat. This is a really important film, I think, in the sort of history of horror, in terms of the performance of Johnny in particular, but the filmmaking as well. So my caveat is, if you're a serious film buff and you are not daunted by having to work or being a little confused and having to kind of work through, if you like things handed to you, don't watch this film, because you've got to fill in the blanks. You've got to think about what's going on. You've got to watch it more than once, I think, to get anything out of it. So I would say no. The casual viewer or the average viewer is really not, I don't think, going to have a good experience watching this film.
Yeah, I think this might appeal to like 10% of people,
if
maybe.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've watched David Lynch films, if you're a fan of his work, you might enjoy this.
Yeah.
If you saw, is it Mother with Jennifer Lawrence?
Yes.
That's operating on a very metaphorical level. If you like that kind of film, you'll like this, I think. I actually even struggle to call this a horror movie, I think. This to me almost feels more like a drama.
Yeah.
Like an intense drama. But there's not really, I don't feel it's really eliciting fear a whole lot.
No, but I would say, because we're heading into spoilers anyway, I would suggest that it does operate on a horror level, almost Lovecraftian. That would be it's not.
Yeah, I can see that a bit.
It's not a large part of the film, but it's there.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're a horror fan as well, I don't know if this is really going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, fair.
But there's some horror elements.
Yeah.
Especially Lovecraftian ones I can see more. Okay. All right, spoilers.
Yes, spoilers. So, spoilers.
So I just had an upcoming thing spoiled for me.
Okay, so one of the things I'm interested in is, so on your first watch, did the doppelgangers confuse you?
I was caught off guard when she like goes to the school and then the teacher looks just like,
Yeah. So, I mean, I mentioned that Johnny plays two characters, but other than her hairstyle and maybe a couple of other elements, the Helen character is a doppelganger for Anna.
yes.
And towards the end of the film, almost the very end, we get a doppelganger for Mark as well. So
I think I know what's going on now, but on my first watch, I was very...
yeah. So, okay. So I have a take on it. What's your take on what the doppelgangers are accomplishing in the film?
Right. So I think what the doppelgangers are trying to be is they are like the ideal qualities of the partner that each one of them wants and isn't getting.
Yeah.
And I also wonder if part of it's like, I'm guessing she maybe doesn't actually look like Anna, but because he's still in love with Anna, he's like projecting her onto this other person potentially. So like deep down, he's still attracted to Anna.
Yeah.
But he's projecting that onto this person. I think it's a combination of
That's really interesting.
those two things.
Yeah, I hadn't.
So in his mind, he's still thinking about Anna, and he's and I think some people do this, like when they break up with someone and they are with somebody else, they're almost wanting it to be like their original relationship, but without the annoying things or the things that they didn't like. So I think it's one of those two things.
That's really interesting. I hadn't taken. I didn't have that read. I did have the read about they were representative of the ideal of the other person.
Yeah.
But I think that's quite interesting. The idea that maybe that's a fantasy part of the movie.
Because I don't feel like the boy makes much mention of her. Like, he doesn't comment, oh, you look just like my mom. It's only, I feel like, through Mark's eyes where she reminds. And there's other times where I feel like he's an unreliable narrator.
Absolutely.
So part of me wondered if that's him projecting onto her that
that's really
based on his desire for.
Yeah.
Because I think he, on a lot of levels, still wants to be with her, but not for who she is.
Right.
He wants her to be like a
Something
good,
else,
a good mother, and a good wife, and in his possession. I don't know.
So, I mean, I can't poke any holes in that argument because I think it's and
I think she sort of also wants the same.
So that was my question. I think so too. I think she wants an ideal Mark, but why then does his doppelganger not show up till the very end? I guess because we have to go through.
Yeah, I think part of it's just for the dramatic.
Yeah. Okay.
And working through all the metaphors of the creation of that thing. Yeah. But I noticed that like he's by her side and he is always in her home. And that's where she wanted him to be. Like, he was always away.
Right.
So I think what she wanted from him is just him to be present and at home.
Yeah.
And he wanted her to be like a good mother and a good caretaker and whatever. So I get the sense that the fact that that thing before it's Mark is like rooted in the house in the corner. She can have her ways with it. Yeah. And then, it's even by her side at the end. I wonder if that's what she wanted, but then she's still kind of disgusted by him, I think, a bit, she says.
Yeah. It's
definitely,
really
I feel like nothing comes together in like a crystal clear way. Like, you kind of are taking shots in the dark and hoping that you're kind of right. But those were sort of the thoughts I had.
What did you think of Heinrich?
So, yeah, I feel like Heinrich is sort of, I think in relationships, he's almost like the rebound, or like you're looking for something different, but it's still not what you want. Like, I feel like Heinrich wants to possess her just as much as he does. So he's like different and he fulfills some of the needs that she needs, but he's then also still not what she needs. Yes. So he's just another failure. Or another person who's trying to possess her.
Yeah, I got exactly the same thing. I mean, she has an affair with Heinrich, or is continuing to have an affair with him, but then she realizes she doesn't want him either. And he becomes as possessive as Mark, right? Yes. Goes to her apartment to confront her and all the rest of it. So, but I actually liked the character of Heinrich, not for any of those reasons, but just how he... I don't know. It was how he acted with. He's almost.
I thought his kung fu was a little over the top.
Well, and he's almost flamboyant.
He is, yeah.
Because when Mark comes over to confront him,
and Mark is so stiff.
Yes, yeah. And he's very loose and languid, and he even almost caresses Mark.
Yeah, he's quite nice to Mark. Mark is the one who's being a dick to him. Yeah.
And I just got the sense that maybe Heinrich was bi.
I can see that.
It doesn't matter, but it's definitely meant to be a juxtaposition to Mark, right? Like, he's a completely different kind of man than Mark, but he also wants to possess her, so she doesn't want to have anything to do with him.
Did you have subtitles on?
No.
Oh, okay. I felt like I struggled with the accents a little bit, both with Anna and Heinrich.
Okay.
I feel like some of the dialogue was lost on me just because of their French accents were so thick.
I mean, that's pretty fair because some of the dialogue goes by pretty quick too. Yeah. So they don't slow anything down if you're not, paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay. So the doppelgangers, I like your take on maybe that's just fantasy, because I was trying to, I was trying to figure out a way that it was realistic in my head. Like, I was like, okay, well, does she look like, is it just coincidence that she looks like Anna? And I hadn't really got past the reality part. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Do you get, like, sometimes I wasn't sure, like when they're in that restaurant and they have a fight and he's like throwing chairs and like, is he actually doing that? Or is that meant to be like an exaggerated state of how people feel when they're fighting?
Okay.
And same when he's cutting himself.
Yes.
But then that disappears, I think, the next day.
So I think the restaurant scene, the movie starts off like a drama.
Yeah.
The restaurant scene is where it takes a left turn.
I think so.
And I think my reading of it is he does fly off the handle and he's throwing chairs and tables around because you have the reactions of the other patrons.
People. That's true.
So I think that's real. I don't think it's real when he's cutting himself.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantasy or it's some kind of weird like nightmare or dream state or whatever.
And there's parts too, I think when they're fighting, he's like pulling all the stuff out of the
Yes.
shelves. And I just wondered, like, is that supposed to just be like symbolic of his mental state? Like that
Yeah.
state of chaos, is that just meant to reflect what's going on in his mind? But maybe it's not actually happening in the real world. Like those are and that's the thing you have to struggle with these films is you don't know what
Yes.
is metaphor and what is real.
And even if we had the director sitting with us, I have a sense that he would not interpret that for us.
No.
He'd be like, well, the film is what it is. And
Totally.
you have to interpret,
But the way they use cinematography again to
Yes.
reflect their mental state, I could see him. It seems to be that's part of the film, like the
Yes.
exaggerated movements, the chaotic cinematography, and then just like, the chaos of the world and the things happening.
Yeah.
seems to more be reflecting like their mental state.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that like, so what we haven't,
Well, and the transformation or the subway scene.
yes, which we haven't even talked about yet, but
I'll let you talk.
I mean,
about
what we haven't talked about is, we just mentioned that restaurant scene, which is early in the film, and it kind of, that's where the movie departs from reality.
Yeah.
I think. Now, that's not to say that the rest of the film is all in somebody's head, but I don't think it's completely reality. So that's that deviation. So what ends up happening is, at least my reading of it, Mark's a spy.
yes.
And that's why he's away so often. And when he discovers that his wife's having an affair, he hires a private detective agency to follow her and find out. And that's, I think, how he finds out about Heinrich, maybe. But it's for sure how he finds out about her second apartment.
Or did he find a postcard or something?
Oh, that's right. He does find a postcard.
And then he calls her friend. or
Yes,
something. Yeah.
that's right. So he hires a detective. The detective or the agency sends out one detective that she dispatches.
Yeah.
With some help. And then the head detective of the private investigator agency or whatever, he goes out and also runs into problems with her. And then Mark, as the film progresses, he realizes that she's either complicit or responsible for the deaths of these men.
Mm-hmm.
And he covers that up.
Yeah.
He kills Heinrich.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sets her apartment on fire and turns on the gas and it explodes, obviously getting rid of all the evidence and the bodies and stuff. But here's where this is where it gets really weird. So what we find out is that Anna, yes, she's had an affair with Heinrich, but she's also having an affair, if that's what you want to call it, with this thing. And that's the only that's the only word I can use to describe it. It's almost like so that's why I said
That's the Lovecraftian part. It's
yes,
like a tentacled creature.
it's like a Cthulhu thing.
Yeah.
So she's having an affair with this thing, and she's having sex with it.
Yep.
And we see that in a couple of scenes, and that was very off-putting for me the first time I saw it, because I was like, what is going on here? So that's where I come back to the idea of possibly the reference, the title reference is to her being possessed.
Or is that something in her possession?
Well, that's what I haven't quite figured out, is like, because she almost possesses this thing.
Yeah.
Like she owns this thing almost. But it seems to me that as we get to at the end of the film and we see Mark's doppelganger, that thing has possessed her, in the sense, this is my reading, possessed her to have sex with it so that it can create another mark or another body or
interesting.
whatever. So I don't really have any basis for that. Like I can't point to anywhere where it said that thing is sentient or she's communicating with it or whatever. It's just this gooey blob with tentacles that she screws a few times in the film. It's just like,
and it seems to be manifested from female bodily fluids. So there's a lot
Yes.
when she births it the first
Yes.
time, there's a lot of red liquid and white liquid.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like menstrual blood and breast milk or whether that's,
yeah. And
if we're operating on a metaphorical level.
yes. And so in the scene that you're referring to, so that's the infamous subway tunnel. So she's, and this is where her performance is just unbelievable. So and this I think is another place where the title reference comes in, because she's almost possessed
Yes.
in that scene. So she's got these bags of groceries and she's flailing about and she's doing things, and then she has what they refer to as a miscarriage in the film, right? What she miscarried, I have no idea, but maybe it was that thing.
Well, yeah. So my understanding that thing comes from this process
Yeah,
or
okay.
whatever's happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I read apparently he had them go into like hypnotic trances.
I did
He
hear
put them
that,
under
yeah.
hypnosis. And so that hypnotic, I guess he was trying to get her to go into that kind of state for this scene.
Yeah.
I guess his instruction to her was like F the air. That's what she was
Yes.
told to do.
Yeah. And
in this like hypnotic state, and you end up with this really crazy
And
scene.
apparently she, like, after that scene, she had a bit of a mental breakdown. And you can almost see that. It's kind of like, the scene in Apocalypse Now where Martin Sheen is cutting himself with the.
Yes.
So you know that story?
Yeah.
About,
no.
so that's real.
Oh, I see. I did not know that.
So when they filmed that, at least this is the story that I read, Martin Sheen had a breakdown when they were on location.
And they filmed it?
And they filmed it.
Whoa.
I mean, he was having a breakdown
Yeah, as part
they
of the scene, yeah.
But him like smashing the mirror and cutting himself, that's real. And he, basically lost touch with reality, and they kept that in the scene.
Wow.
So I get that sense almost in this scene that she's so over the top in her performance that you can almost read into it that she's having a real life breakdown in that scene. And it's incredible considering how much tension and how much of the performance of the film relies on her, that she could go even a step beyond that in this scene and just be like really.
And I guess if you're really acting and you're really in character, then you are adopting the
Yes.
feelings and the mindsets of the character you're portraying. And so it's easy to think you're just, I just draw a line between what's real and what's not. But I think to do the role as well as you can, you almost have to blur those lines.
Absolutely.
And so that makes sense to me. Yeah. Yeah, there's just so many.
There's
I mean,
so
you could
much.
spend actually, I noticed there's just a lot of analysis on this movie, and it seems like you go into crazy depths.
Oh yeah.
And there's lots of different interpretations. I don't feel
Exactly.
like, well, yeah, this is what it is. Like, I think there's just different readings on it.
Yeah, I mean, this rabbit hole is pretty deep. Like you could go, depending on how you read the different things, you could go in many different directions.
Yeah. I did notice the color thing. So she's wearing blue the entire film,
Yes.
and their apartment is blue. So there's a lot of blue. And then the doppelgangers both have green eyes, which is kind of interesting.
I think so, yeah.
And she's wearing white, and there's the white liquid, and there's a lot of red. So there's a lot of color symbolism, I think. I don't know what it all means, but
And I think her other apartment, although it's dilapidated, I seem to recall that there's like warmer colors in
which
that
makes sense, right?
apartment.
Because their marriage is so cold.
Yes.
I think that's kind of what they're getting at.
I think so too.
And she's having sex with
Whatever it is, Cthulhu.
yeah, but at least there's warmth there, and she's kind of getting her needs
Yes.
met there. So
Yes.
that makes sense.
That's how I read it too, was that's kind of her.
And if you were to mix red and white together, which is what it's birthed from, I feel like the color of the wallpaper is almost that kind of orangey brown. So I don't know if that was intentional. Yeah, I don't know. This movie is intense.
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think everything's intentional from the director. It's just can we figure out what his intention is?
Yeah.
Like, I think he is intentional and deliberate about what he's trying to accomplish, because the interviews that I've seen with him, he's a very thoughtful, well-spoken. I mean, I think he's passed away now, but I would highly doubt if anything's left to chance. I think he's planned everything out and he knows what he wants, but that doesn't mean that it's clear to us what those things are.
Like, I think the gist of it, I get, like, about their relationships, and they're not happy, and they each have these needs, and those needs aren't being met, and that the doppelgangers do seem to be a manifestation of the thing that they want most.
Yes.
And it's interesting that they end up together dead at the end, kind of on the stairs, right? But I don't know if that's like the death of their relationship or the death of what they were, but then the two doppelgangers end up together. But then when they get together, it sounds like there's like a war starting. There's like bombs dropping. And I don't know if that's like the East Berlin is invading.
Right.
And then the boy runs upstairs and drowns himself.
That I couldn't come up with it. Like,
no, that I kind of struggle with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get that maybe he's lost both of his real parents and now he's been abandoned, or he doesn't want to live with these new versions because they're not his parents.
Yeah.
Even though they're these new, supposedly ideal versions of his parents.
And he somehow, because he pleads with Helen not to go answer the door.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my reading of that, watching it, is that he has some sort of sense that doppelganger is not, I don't know if I'd call it evil, but it's not, it's going to do them some harm.
Yeah.
And so, I was confused about, okay, like, I never got a sense that this kid had any kind of sixth sense or whatever. So what's going on there? And then the fact that he goes and drowns himself really didn't, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And I feel like that's all metaphor level.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know, did you get the sense that maybe he's more attached to his dad?
Yes.
Because he comes over and she's been neglectful. Like, she's left him at home and he's got like jam all over his face. So the dad maybe almost seems to be more the parent.
Or at least that's what we're led to believe, because that's Mark's view of her mothering
his
skills,
perspective.
right?
Yeah.
And like you said, the he's not a reliable narrator. And considering you have a male director who's going through divorce at the time, it seems to me that might be your perspective about your spouse, right? Is that she's, in this case, she's not a good mother. So I wonder if that translated into the film.
Do you feel like there are times where we get her perspective as well?
Not often.
No.
I think, I mean, I was just looking at a quote that I had written down saying, she says, "I can't exist by myself because I'm afraid of myself, because I'm the maker of my own evil." Mm-hmm. And I think there are moments when we get an insight into who she is, but a lot of the film is Mark's perspective.
Yeah. What are there's two things she says, faith and chance. She goes in this monologue.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite get the two sisters, like the one was faith and one was chance.
Yes.
And she's talking about those two things. I didn't quite get how those two things fit into the film.
No, and there was one scene that and maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I didn't really get the church scene either. Like when she's in the church and she's looking up, I think it's a statue of Jesus, right? And she makes some weird noises.
Yeah.
And then she leaves.
So that would speak to faith, maybe
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably watch this movie 10 times.
Oh, for sure.
And be picking up more things. And I think we do a review here. We try to break down some of the analytical elements, but I mean, you could do a couple hours video essay on this or literal essay. Like it's deep.
And I think that's a good reminder for the viewers and listeners, is that if it sounds like we're struggling to put things together, it's because this film is really, it's not disjointed in terms of its narrative, because it's a pretty straightforward in one sense. This is, couples on the rocks, she's having an affair, and it's the interaction like a drama, like you mentioned. But then there's all these other elements and layers. That's what makes it challenging to decide, okay, what's really going on here other than the obvious? And why is he alluding to these things? Why is he bringing these things up? And how do those things relate to their relationship or relate to their individuality, and what they want from a partner or what they want from life and so on? So Yeah, we could have 2 hours and not get anything. So
I mean, she was amazing. And it was cool to see Sam Neill in this kind of role because
I've never seen him in anything like this.
no, like usually he's a pretty straightforward character. He's in like Jurassic Park or I don't know.
Yeah.
So I appreciated seeing him in this film. And it makes sense to me that he said that this was the most extreme role he's ever had.
Absolutely.
I guess, so did you get the sense that he then is also having a relationship with, is it Margit or the other girl?
Yeah, I didn't.
Because
Okay.
they never actually show them being intimate, but it's kind of implied.
I got that sense too. But
she's sleeping there. She's looking after the kid.
Yeah.
He kind of goes in. She's got a cast on her leg or something. And he's kind of...
It seems like he's almost mothering her, looking after her.
Yeah. But I wasn't sure if there was some romance happening there or not.
Yeah, I didn't... That wasn't clear to me either. Because I thought the way he was talking to her on the phone... And in some earlier scenes that he like really resented her and maybe didn't like her very much. And then it seems, that there was a softening of that attitude when she actually shows up. Mm-hmm. And how does having a blank on how she dies doesn't matter, but I just...
Oh, because he takes the body out.
Yes.
But how did she actually die? Yeah, I don't remember that actually. It's weird that we both don't.
Yeah, there's so many things going on.
So this is autobiographical to some extent. So he was going through a divorce.
Yes.
Did she cheat on him? Do we know?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Because I was wondering how much of the Heinrich, is it Heinrich?
Right.
His character or his mother being there, like are some of these elements related to your experience? But then as you say, he kind of treats Heinrich pretty fairly.
I think so. Yeah.
So if his wife in real life had cheated on him, he probably wouldn't be so charitable to the depiction of that
I wouldn't
person.
think so.
I wonder if that's not autobiographical.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many layers to this onion.
Yeah.
It's really hard to definitively say this means this or this is this. And that's coming back to our recommendations. Like, if you really like digging into a film and you like being a little bit confused and having to work at what does this mean or what does that mean, then I think you'll like this film for that reason, because it's like, okay, let me play with that. Let me see what that's about. And the film, I mean, it obviously has some strong critical reviews.
Did you find Rotten Tomato scores on this one?
It's like 80, 85 and 77 and 7.3.
I'm actually shocked it has a 77% audience score.
Yeah, that shocked me
like,
too.
These are one of the ones where I could see having a very high critic score,
100%.
but like quite a low. So that's impressive.
And it does.
I would have thought it'd be around 50 or less.
Yeah, it did surprise me when I pulled it up. I'm like, really? That many people like
Maybe people who seek out this film
maybe
are, yeah. Would you? So you and I are both, I think, David Lynch fans.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Do you like this on that same level, or do you prefer like a David Lynch?
I kind of prefer Lynch's approach to things.
They can be a little more entertaining.
Yeah. Again, roast me in the comments if you want. And I'm saying this, half my background is Eastern European. But I do I get a sense that this has a real Eastern European vibe for me, in the sense that it's very thoughtful, but also very serious. There's not a lot of levity in this film at all. Whereas Lynch, there's serious elements to his films, but there's also levity. And particularly, I think, when he goes into like, oh, is this real or not real? There's often little quirky things. I mean, I'm thinking about even stupid things like the dancing little person in in Twin Peaks, right? And it's like, what is that? So, I mean, I just think some of those things are funny for Lynch. And he does have, I feel like he has a bit of a knack for snappy dialogue and for having a bit of humor in this one.
There's zero humor.
This was just dire
comedy.
from start to finish.
Really dark.
Yeah.
Would you call this film self-indulgent?
Well, you could make an argument for it for sure. Well, okay, here's what I'll say.
Is he working through his own issues?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. Like if your film, I don't mean that every film has to like lay it out for you and hand it to you on a silver platter. But if you have to work this hard to figure out what a film is about or what it's doing, then I would argue there's some self-indulgence there. Like if this is only knowable to you as the director, why did you make the film to begin with?
Yeah.
If it's not, and maybe,
and as someone who's going through a divorce, like
Yes.
maybe this was sort of cathartic.
I think it was for sure. And there were other elements in his life, like you mentioned about, being banned in Poland and so on. I think this is an opportunity for him to work through a bunch of different things for sure.
Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate the film. The performances are amazing. There's clearly a ton of artistry in terms of the cinematography and the directing, and intellectually, there's clearly a lot going on here. Yeah, I like these movies every once in a while. I don't have a high tolerance. Like, I'm good for this style of film for a while now. Like, I'm ready for some lighter fare.
For
but
sure.
Maybe like once a year, I kind of like jumping into something like this.
Yeah, and I don't know if I ever
Men
need
was
to,
a bit like that too.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know if I ever need to watch this again, having seen it, I think 3 times now.
Yeah, I won't watch this again.
But I agree with you that, it's worth sometimes kind of, diving into the rabbit hole and just seeing, if nothing else, what a director is capable of pulling out of actors and what actors are capable of in terms of delivering a performance. Meryl Streep.
Oh yeah, okay,
that's who
well done. Hey, you got it.
Sorry,
better late than never.
Just bing. That was the Kramer versus Kramer. Just by the way.
And that film can operate like a piece of literature in terms of the depth of, the symbolism and metaphors and all those things. So,
I mean, there's lots that we could talk about, but is there anything else that was on your list that you want to?
No, I've been thinking about this film for like 2 weeks now, and I feel like I said most of what I want to say, and my brain is tired. But yeah,
so you do appreciate the fact that I put this on the list and that you actually watched it.
I do. I think it was so out of line with what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if I watch a movie that says David Lynch, I just know, I know what I'm in for. Or some films, but I just thought because it was Possession, I was kind of excited for like, okay, cool. And I heard it was good.
Yeah.
Here we go. Like some 80s film I've not seen. It's going to be like a good demonic possession film that I've not. And then I'm like, oh no.
You're like, what? Domestic drama? This isn't what I signed up for.
I struggle to maybe call this a horror film.
I think you're right. It's certainly skirting.
And I don't know. I kind of doubt. I don't get the sense that. I mean, I guess Lovecraftian horror is usually about descent into madness.
Yes.
And it has these types of creatures. And I wonder if Lovecraft was an influence for him at all, or if that's just coincidence.
Yeah. I mean, I put that label on it. I didn't come across anything that said he was influenced or read Lovecraft or had any interest in that kind of stuff. It's just, I think I told you the story about the creator of the thing was responsible for making the xenomorph in Alien. And he had shown up to set with basically this big pink latex.
I heard that.
Like condom. That's what they called it. Like just this condom, big pink condom. And the director was like, that's useless to us. Like, so that's where the tentacles and stuff came from, because they just tried to make do with what this effects person had brought with them.
And I think I confused this with, there is a Lovecraftian Sam Neill film that came out around this time. Is it Mountains of Madness or?
In the Mouth of Madness.
Mouth of Madness.
Yeah,
that's part of John Carpenter's trilogy.
Yes.
Okay, that's Sam Neill as well, right?
Yes.
And that is Lovecraftian. Is my understanding.
Yes.
Okay. So I think I've maybe conflated or confused these two films at different times, maybe because they both have maybe Lovecraftian themes and they're both Sam Neill, and I both hadn't seen them, and they're both around this time period. So, okay.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I that was just something that came to my mind because of what the thing looked like.
Yes.
But I came across nothing that said he was influenced or had any kind of interest in Lovecraftian horror. But yeah, I think you're right. It's hard to call this, like, this doesn't sit in a horror bucket exclusively. there's only elements of horror in it. It certainly operates more like a family drama sort of thing.
Yeah, like there's some body horror, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's never scary or never even trying to be scary.
No.
I don't think. No. All right. Anything else?
I do not have anything else.
Okay. We made it. We made it through.
We made it through
Okay.
that one.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the aisles.